Hear me, if you can hear the voice, if you can hear a kick drum, because we're going to do some sound stuff today. So if you're in the chat, if you jump in the chat, let me know what you hear, if you hear that stuff, and then let me know if you can hear me. And I apologize in advance if you can hear a fan, but it's very hot where I am, and it's the only way to have some cool air in here, so I will try to talk over it and put the music over it so you don't hear so much fan. But if it gets to be too much, let me know and I'll turn it off. So if you are in there,
Cool air in here.
let's hear. Yeah, good, awesome. Hey, what's going on, Marcellus? Good to see you. Welcome, welcome. This was kind of a last minute thing, so we'll gather people around. We'll get some people to come join us. But we're going to talk about a fun topic today, because we're in kind of the final stages of getting everything built for my travel rig for my shows in the U.S., in Europe, super booth, all that kind of stuff. And so I'm kind of getting my rig dialed in. I have a few last changes to make over the next couple days, but wanted to talk about the decisions that I'm making, particularly in the modular, and particularly as geared towards sound design. So, cool, sounds good, awesome. Let me know if the fan is too annoying, but it'll be a struggle to not have the fan on in here right now. So anyway, let's shift views here so you can see a little bit about what's going on. All right. Yeah, I had fun last week too. It's nice to be back. It's been a little while. So hopefully we'll get back into a little bit of a regular schedule, maybe interrupted because of some travel, but we'll see. The idea is to try to get these to be as regular as possible. So get back on here and chatting about all the fun stuff. So if you have any questions today, for sure, put them in the chat. Again, particularly geared towards the sound design side of things, because that's what we're going to be talking a bit about today, and kind of how to use the modules that we have. And this applies for hardware boxes as well, but it's just a little bit easier to show on modular. How to use the modules that we have to make the sounds we want to make, and to kind of accomplish the things that we want to accomplish in a live set. Because there's one side of sound design that's kind of the true sound design part, where you're kind of exploring, you're making sounds that you'll use maybe for production or maybe in something else. And then there's how do you design sounds live in the minute on the fly to accomplish objectives that you have during a live performance, right? So whether that's, creating tension, releasing tension, doing, build-ups and breakdowns, or transitioning from one mood to another mood, or changing up kind of the vibe and the energy, all of that stuff is accomplished through sound design. And so wanted to talk a little bit about how I set things up to be able to do that when I play live. So again, if you have any questions, please pop those into the chat, and we will we'll get rolling here. Let me know what you think about the new views too. We've got some kind of different views, different camera angles and stuff. Hopefully they don't get too distracting, but yeah, we will. I'm going to switch up so you can see a bit more of the rig, and that way we can talk a bit more about that. One shameless plug, as things are changing, some changes recently, been boosting up the Patreon. So if you're interested in joining, that's kind of what supports what I do here on the channel. YouTube doesn't do much and all of that. So if you'd like to join up the Patreon, it's pretty cool. We do a once weekly group meetup live chat, talking about different subjects. We did that yesterday morning. We do it each Saturday morning, and Saturday morning US Mountain Time, Saturday evening European time. And yeah, we talk a lot about different subjects each time. You can throw in your subject, whatever you'd like to talk about, and we get those things. We get together once a week and have a great time. So if you're interested in that, join one of the two layers or the two tiers in Patreon that has the weekly call. And you can do that. There's a little thing down below here. You can go to patreon.com/Circo and check it out. And yeah, would love to see you guys there. So in the meantime, let's talk sound design. So you can kind of see. Let me move camera just a little so you can see the modular a little better. I didn't want to turn it up or tip it up too high because then you get blinded by the light coming in the window here in beautiful Mexico. So yeah, we'll switch that around. So yeah, so you can see that a little bit. So basically, it's kind of interesting. What I've got set up here is not exactly what I'm going to be playing with in Europe, because I'm going to be getting in the next couple days when I get back to the States, I'll be getting my Epsilon SL from BoardBrain, new mixer, which will be kind of a central part of my live setup. And so in the meantime, I'm trying to kind of replicate what things will be like once I have that, so that I can kind of build the setup around that. And so when I go on this trip, it's going to be a bit smaller modular rig than what I have been bringing recently. So I've got just this 7U84 up here above, which is going to be the only modular part that I'm going to take. As far as like main voices, I'm going to have a little tiny skiff, which I'll talk about in a minute. So this is going to be all of the kind of voices, effects, modulation, everything is all going to be what's in this 7U84. What's down here, the way I kind of redesigned this dual case, is that this is obviously mixer, effects, output module, all that kind of stuff, and then a few other voices, which unfortunately there's not space to take on this trip, but this is kind of taking the place of the mixer. So really, there's nothing connected down here that's not either mixer or output module. And those are all connected via these cables that are coming from these modules, because that's how I'm going to patch them into the mixer. So it's a little bit different kind of configuration. So this isn't, the whole thing isn't what's going to be coming, but it acts very similarly because the Epsilon modular mixer has a lot of similarities to the Epsilon SL standalone mixer. And so that's going to be, right now it's kind of standing in for it, so that when I get that, when I get back to Colorado, I'll be able to put that with this setup. So that's what will be right here. And then I'll have let's see, the modular, which you can see up above. There are going to be a couple little changes with the modular. I'm going to be switching out the Ghost so that I can try out the WMD Cosmic Debris. So I'll be getting that one on Thursday. So that's going to go into this spot. And then I actually have an interesting module that I had never seen before just recently. I was looking for something interesting to do with this 1U row because I've never been much of a 1U person. And so I noticed this thing that's called, it's from Zork's Modular, I can't remember. And it's basically a 1U84 strip that is a mult with attenuators, attenuverters, a 4-channel mixer, all that kind of stuff, all in one strip. So that's what's going to be going in here as soon as I get back and put that all together. So that's going to be, yeah, the rest of the setup. Other than that, it's going to look very much like it looks right now. Which is, let's walk through it really quick and then we'll talk about how I'm going to use it. Couple drum voices down here. So I've got the Bohm kick drum, Archer's rig hi-hat, and battering ram kick drum down below. The Griffin's claws for recording modulation and doing modulation. And that's going to interface with that Zork's module, which I'll tell you about in a minute. Pam's doing all of the clock and different clocking of everything that's in here. Over on this side, we have the Desmodus Versio, which is my send effect 1, which is pre-fader on this mixer, and that's my reverb. Then up above, we have the Ghost, which is going to be switched out for the Cosmic Debris, which is going to be my send effect 2. Then we have a voice right here in the center, or just right of center, which is the Bastl Pizza FM voice going into the WMD Javelin, into the WMD Carbon. and that's a whole voice together. And there's some different mults happening here, which I'll explain in a minute. That's also going to be happening with the new that new module that's going across the middle. Then we have the WMD Clutch here for percussion, which I'll talk about as we go through sound design. Then we have the new Ballista Blast with its expander, which is a classic subtractive voice, also a wavetable voice, and also an FM voice with full voice with built-in filters, envelopes, modulation, LFOs, all that kind of stuff built into one voice. Then we have this last section over here, which is the Doepfer A155-2 sequencer, which is sequencing the BIA, which is then going into the WMD Carbon. So basically kind of tonal voices, pizza, ballista, and BIA, and then percussive voices, clutch, boom, archer's rig, battering ram. And then two send effects will be the cosmic debris and the Desmodus Versio, and then modulation is Pam's and Griffin's Claws. And that's kind of the whole setup. That's everything that's going to be going. So what's interesting with this setup is that I had to think about a bunch of things all at once. Small enough that I can carry it with me, carry on with all the other pieces that I'll have going with me. Very flexible and very capable from a sound design perspective, which is what we're going to talk about today, so that I can do a bunch of different types of shows. So I have some shows where I have to set up quick, relatively small setup, play for an hour. And then on the other extreme, I have a show next Friday night where I'm going to be playing solo, improvised, open to close from midnight to 6 a.m. So it's going to be a 6-hour live set. So it has to be able to do, you know, from one extreme to the other, be tight and compact and able to transport, but also be flexible enough that I can, you know, comfortably play for hours and hours and hours without running out of sound ideas and that stuff. So it will be this modular with the mixer, sequenced from the Oxy 1, everything sequenced from the Oxy 1 except for the BIA, which is sequenced from the Doepfer. And then of course I'll also have the Electron Tonewerk, and that's being controlled by the Noisite drop here. And then I will also have, for the larger shows, I'll have the Roland TR-1000 drum machine. So that'll be the expanded setup, but I can play just, you know, a 1 hour set, no problem, with just the modular, the mixer, and the Oxy 1. So different ways to configure depending on what's needed for individual shows. So any questions about that so far? I see there's a few comments, questions in here. Sweet, you're gonna take part of the Patreon, awesome. Hey Ted, what's going on? Good to see you. From Ann Arbor, Michigan, how's it going? Welcome, welcome. James, what's going on? James from Seattle. Last stream was inspiring, good, I'm glad to hear that. That's the idea, is for this to give you guys ideas to use in your stuff. The last thing I'm trying to do is to say, here's the way you have to do it. Like, I'm not like that at all. I'm not saying there's one way or there's one gear or there's one thing. It's like, here's how I do it and here's how I use it. And if that gives you an idea of something that might work for you, awesome. And if none of it does, cool. It's been cool hanging out either way. Let's see here. Do you prepare sets or making in the moment? If you're making in the moment, are you using headphones? My sets are 100% improvised in the moment. So I start from blank sequencers. The only thing that I have prepared in advance is my sound palette. So I will have obviously modular sound palette, which is the things we're talking about today, the voices that I choose and how I set them up to be able to be used. And then within the Tonewerk and the TR-1000, again, sound palettes. So I'll have kits of sounds built, or I build those just out of habit in patterns in the Electron boxes. So a pattern is a kit for me. So I'll have, you know, pattern 1 will be 8 sounds, pattern 2 will be 8 sounds, pattern 3 will be 8 sounds. And that way, when I want to switch from one group of sounds to another, I just switch patterns. I know with the Tonework, it's got kits and I can swap out kits. I just am not used to using that workflow yet, which I will for sure. Yeah, just not yet. And same thing with the TR1000. It has kits, so I can build out, it's got 10 tracks, 10 channels. So I can basically build out kits of 10 sounds. And then when I want to change up kind of vibe or energy or mood, I can switch out the sounds, and then start writing from then. And I do kind of lay out sound palettes in advance based on kind of the type of show that I'm going to play and the the mood or style of music, genre, whatever. I'll build out sound palettes based on that, but I don't have any tracks pre-written. I don't have any stems. I don't have any actually, I don't have any loops anymore. I used to have some atmospheric loops, but don't have any of those. So yeah, everything's written live in the moment, for the moment. Can't ever be repeated again. It's not that I've written stuff and I've disassembled it and I'm reassembling it live. It's that I've built a sound palette that I'm using to write music live in the moment. If that clears things up a bit. Let's see. How do you avoid getting too locked into a particular sound from a module, especially with BIA? Pretty comfortable, but I know it's more capable than, yeah. So that's actually what we're going to talk about today, is how to kind of expand those modules out to the outer reaches of what they can do instead of kind of sticking to what they do. BIA was originally designed as a kick drum module and or at very least a percussion module. I have never used it as a drum module ever since I had it, and it's been in every case since my very first modular case. It was one of the first modules I ever bought, and I use it as a tonal voice. But I like the percussive elements of it as a voice, which is why I use it in that instead of using another voice for tonal stuff. But I love the sound design, which is what we'll talk a bit about. So yeah, we'll talk about that a whole bunch. What tape do you use for labeling your Exelon? I actually ordered on Amazon. It's this white like mixer tape, so it doesn't stick down. Like when you peel it up, it doesn't leave any residue. And I have like the wide version for my studio mixer, and then a narrower version, and then this is the narrowest version because on these Exelon mixers, there's not a lot of space on the bottom. So I put that on there, but it was just like cheap white mixer tape that I found on Amazon. Let's see. Evening from the UK. What's going on? Welcome. Look forward to seeing the Board Brain at Super Booth. Yeah, it's going to be cool. We're premiering the final version, and it's going to be badass. Yes, I'll be playing Friday night. I'm playing Thursday night in the big show with a group of people where we're going to be playing live together for 5 straight hours, and then Friday night I'll be playing an individual set with the Raw Industries crew, which is going to be a fun one. Tomo, Analog Kitchen, Very Avis, Joseph Kunz, Alex Anderson, Snakes of Russia. Yeah, it's going to be a great show. So definitely come to both of those if you can. Wondering if you set up the drop and the Tonework more. Not a lot more. I mean, I've kind of continued on with what I talked about last time, but this time we're going to talk more about the sound design stuff, and maybe I'll do a better one on the drop next time once I get it more fleshed out. But yeah. Real artist. I don't know. I don't think there's any such thing as real or fake artists. I think that art is art, and we should make art for the pleasure of making art and our enjoyment in making art. And yeah, if other people enjoy that, that's awesome. And if they don't, well, then that's okay too. It's all good. Let's see. No, that's similar before, but how do you work with inspiration? Like go to a show and are blown away? What are the next steps? I do that a lot actually. If I don't have, if I come in to make music and I don't have a lot of inspiration at that moment, one of the things that I'll do is I'll listen to other people, and I'll just kind of listen to music that's either new or something that I like. I love to listen to other live sets. I get really inspired by things like Stor and Wizenwig and Circle of Live and those things, just because I love the idea of improvised performance, particularly when it's collaborative. And so that's always really inspiring. But then I also like to go in and listen to a lot of DJ sets. I come from a DJ background, and I like to listen to my favorite artists play DJ sets, because it gives you ideas of kind of inspirational ideas for maybe a rhythmic pattern might strike you and go, oh, that's cool, I want to do something similar to that. And you can go in and kind of sort out how to make it, how to make that pattern, and then say, okay, well, how can I use that in my stuff, and how would that work? Can I memorize it so that I can do it live, or do I need to put little notes on my sequencer about where the steps go? But yeah, I get inspired by other people all the time. Hey, what's going on, Federico? Good to see you. Hope Stone Techno will book you soon. That would be a dream. I think for me, the three dream bookings would be Trezor, Stone Techno, and Store. Those are would be, I could sleep well at night knowing that I had accomplished all that I could accomplish of my stretch goals. But yes, thank you. That would be awesome if they did that as well. All right, Reykjavik. That means we have at least 2 Icelandic people on here. Greetings from Spain. Hey, what's going on? Where in Spain? I will be there in a few weeks. Looking forward to seeing people. Well, anyway, let's get a little bit into the sound design stuff. And let me see. I might be able to zoom this in just a little bit. Sorry, I probably should have sorted this a bit more before you guys got here, but I want to zoom in a bit more on this section, which is, move that way so you can see it better. Try to center it in everything, a little too much of the window. There we go. So that should work. Yeah. So hey, from Brighton, UK, what's going on? How's it going? Hopefully that's not too blinding from the window here. Okay, so sorry for the low quality. It's hard with the bright lights and these small cameras. But so basically, let's go voice by voice, because I think one of the things is, I don't want to kind of overload, okay, this is how I'm going to put all these together at first. I want to, at first, show you a little bit about what each voice is doing. So let's start with the BIA, because that's the one that that I get a lot of questions about, because most people are using it as a drum voice, because that's kind of what it was made for. But I'm not using it like that. So let me just make sure I don't have anything weird that blasts you out when I press this. Okay. So I have this Dope for sequencer sequencing this. So it's just doing 16th notes that are unquantized pitch going into that. And what I'll do is I'll bring up, let me know how you guys can hear that. Just in the chat, I want to make sure that the levels don't go all haywire once I start bringing things in. So a couple cool things about the BIA. First and foremost, it has an octave switch, which is really important to me. All the main voices that I use here all have the ability to quickly switch between octaves, because that gives me a lot of flexibility immediately in the moment when I'm performing. So what I can do is, right now we're obviously in the highest octave. The BIA octave switch is a little different, because every time you click it, it switches 2 octaves. So we go from high to kind of a mid-range to a low. Turn that up a little bit so you can hear it. Yeah. Right? So that gives us a broad range of sounds. Obviously, you can hear that, you get more bass, you get more kind of mid-range, and then up high. And then within each, we'll go back to the mid-range here. Within each, you have 3 different characters. You have skin, liquid, and metal, which is, again, this goes back to what the BIA is for, is that it was really made to be a percussive voice. And so, having this is different ways to add percussion at the beginning. So this is more kind of a tonal one. When you switch to liquid, it gives you that, kind of envelope curve. And at the top, it gives you kind of a noise addition that gives you kind of a percussive bit, which can be really interesting in sound design. So I use generally the skin one on this, or the liquid one. The metal one, I don't use as much unless I'm specifically using it as as a percussive voice at that moment, and I kind of change up what I'm using things for at different times, right? So this is kind of your basic voice with everything down low, the harmonic spread, the morph, and the fold, and the decay really super tight, and the attack really short, right? But you can extend out the decay just to do something interesting. Or tighten it back up again. Then if you want to change up your waveform, you can morph between different waveforms here. This adds more harmonics, it gives it more like a saw character, right? So that's different wave styles. Then you can fold those waveforms to add in additional character, right? So if you get something that has a bunch of harmonics and then you fold it, you can get some really interesting sounds. And this is kind of just on a plucky envelope, but if you open this up, and then maybe add in a filter, and then you can clean it back up again to very clean sound. Then what the BIA has, which is really very cool, and it's one of the reasons why it's kind of always in my case, why it's always in my case is because of this harmonic and spread, because you can introduce harmonics to whatever sound you're doing. And that's all the way up, and then you can spread them out. And again, this is on a really kind of plucky envelope, but if we take this and open it up a little, and then we add harmonics, and then we spread those harmonics, and this is on your cleanest waveform with no folding. Then we start to introduce different waveforms with more harmonics, and then folding, and again, this is all in that middle octave. So we bring this back down. Let's take that down just a little bit, and then do exactly the same thing. Add in some harmonics, and then spread the harmonics. Then change your waveform, and then fold the waveform. And again, this is short and plucky, but let's and then we can also add in, or we can take out some of the Volper octave there. And we can add that back in, whatever we choose to do. And then we can add that envelope at the beginning, that kind of attack. So you can hear, you can get a lot of sounds out of this that have really nothing to do with drums and, drums and percussion sounds. Something else that's really cool with this too is because it is a percussive voice, the way the attack is set up is to be just to the right of 12 o'clock gives you a really short attack on your envelope, right? But if you go just to the left of that, it introduces noise. So that's without it, and that's with it. So again, if you want a little percussive element in your sound that you're designing, you could add that in that way. So again, you can hear that there's a lot of flexibility just within the BIA voice. And again, that was the low frequencies and the mid frequencies. If you want to get into the kind of techno bloopy, high frequency, kind of arpeggiated sounds, this works really well for that as well, right? So here we are in this kind of lower frequency. And actually, you know, while we're in the low frequency, let's bring in a kick so you can hear what it sounds like. That's still a dry sound. Then you add in something like a little reverb. And all this is right now, everything you're hearing right now is just kick drum and BIA. And the BIA through a little reverb. This is just 16th notes cycling through there. So that's one example with those lower frequencies. Then if we change things up a little bit and we go to the mid frequency, and again, a little reverb. To the higher frequencies, I'll filter that so I don't blast anybody out of here. So you can see lots of diversity of sound, lots of flexibility of sound just with a voice like the BIA, and that's supposed to be a kick drum voice, right? So it's one of the things that I always tell my students in my courses is that when you get a new piece of gear or a new module or whatever, the first thing I like to do with that is mess it up. Make it sound as bad as you can make it, like push it way to the outer limits of what it can possibly do sound-wise. And that's where you find the cool sounds. Like if you start from the safe space of what it's supposed to be and, you know, the sound it's supposed to make, and you start to branch out a little from those spaces, you'll get to some things that sound cool, but you'll never get to the really cool stuff unless you really push to make it sound awful. And just back from awful is usually where those super cool creative sounds are. So try to take voices that are, you know, a drum, a hi-hat, whatever, that's something different, and try to push it to be something else that it's not normally, right? And so you can get a lot out of it. So that's a lot of sonic options and possibilities just from one monophonic kick drum voice, right? So push things, really push things to those kind of outer bounds, and do your best to kind of explore those things, right? Let's see here. Hey there, Mexican guy living in Ottawa. Well, I'm an American guy living in Mexico, so good to meet you. Loud and clear, sweet. Actually, it's a bit hard to hear me over the rack audio. Okay, yeah, sorry. I can, maybe I can adjust that. I don't want to make things go up too much. Let's see. Ooh, that's too much. Let's see, like that. I don't want to blast anybody out here, so hopefully that works. It's a little bit hard with, normally at home I would put everything through my main mixer and then run it into the gear. Now I have the audio from my rack going into one of the cameras, and I have my wireless audio, I don't know if you can see this here, connected by this little receiver to another one of the cameras. So it's like trying to mix it together in the streaming software. But thank you for the feedback so I can see exactly how to fix it. Let's see. Brutal. Yes, it's supposed to be. All right. So, mic louder. There we go. Well, hopefully this fixed it, but we'll see once we get rolling again. But anyway, that's what we're doing with things like the BIA. Next up, I'm going to skip over the Ballista because we're going to come back to that one because it's a little bit crazier than everything else. I want to go to kind of a next kind of simple percussive voice that you can use for other interesting stuff. So the WMD Clutch came out just this year, and they put it out as a hi-hat module, and it's basically a sample-based module that has user samples plus built-in kind of, they call them the bread and butter samples, kind of your standard either 909s or like a noise type hi-hat or whatever built in, and you can blend those together. You've got some different effects, so you can do like filters or you can do bit crushing or whatever, and you can also pitch and adjust the decay of each one of the one-shot samples, and then you can add in your own samples. There's an SD card on the front, so you can plug in your own samples and put whatever you want in there. And so when I first got it, one of the first things I did was I was like, okay, well, yes, it's a hi-hat module, but that's not necessarily what I want to use it for, just because of a couple things that it does. So I loaded my own samples in there, and I loaded a bunch of percussive samples in. So what we'll do now is I will just play for you, pitch this down a little bit. Yeah. So this is the Clutch playing some percussive samples that I have through there. So you have 8 samples per bank, so I could switch. Take out the hi-hat there. And then you can pitch these. So let's go back to this one, and then you can pitch these up. And then you can change the decay time. And then if you blend them in with the bread and butter samples, blend that in. Well, I usually leave this on the noise sample so I can add in some noise. So you get that little percussive hit at the start. And that gives you a little bit more emphasis. But what's interesting with things like this, just take a random sample like this, again, something simple with a little bit of groove, with a little bit of character to it, some good harmonics, add in a little bit of effects. Throw in a kick drum. And even with all that, you have stuff that you can play with, right? You have stuff that you can adjust, for example, your decay time. So if you want to create, some tension in like a build-up, you can add some decay. And then shorten it back down when you drop in. Something else that's really unique about the Clutch, and one of the reasons why I'm using it instead of just a random sampler or some other percussive thing, is it has this section down here which is called feel, and what that basically is it has internally some different accent patterns. So like 8-step accent patterns that you can use to provide that kind of groove. It's almost like if you use Ableton, it's kind of like the groove pool in Ableton, where you can overlay a groove on something else that you're doing. TR-1000 has this as well. It has an accent track. But what's cool with this is that you can totally change up your vibe of what you're doing just by changing the accent. So if we go back to what we were doing just then, I can just click this to a different accent feel, to a different one. That's still the exact same one-shot sample, changing up the decay and the pitch, and this feel, right? And then I can change to another feel. And what I'm doing with the Clutch right now is I'm actually not sequencing it from anywhere. All I'm doing is I'm feeding it a 16th note clock. So what you're hearing coming out of that is just coming from straight 16th notes going into the Clutch, but then using that feel, that accent pattern to give me some more interesting accents and some more interesting things to play with. And again, because it has so much character and so much flexibility to shape the sound and get a whole wide range of different sounds, it gives me a broad palette to work from when I'm playing. So again, I can change up the pitch or the sample. And again, switch up that groove. High pass and low pass filters as well, so you can really shape the sound. Right? So again, one module has one purpose. It's supposed to be a hi-hat module. I'm not using it as a hi-hat module at all because I explored around with it and I found some really cool uses for it that didn't have anything to do with being a hi-hat. So I can't emphasize this enough. Take your stuff and explore with it, because I guarantee you already have more than you would ever need in your own gear if you just kind of push the limits of it to do other stuff and find other ways to use it. So let's see here. What do you get from the Dope for sequencer, which you don't get from the Oxy? So for me, I wanted kind of a rogue voice. The Oxy I have, it's step sequenced. I have it set to different keys, so I know kind of what key it is, what intervals it is, and all of that stuff. And with this, I can just dial in the knobs, very much like a DFAM sequencer. Dial in the knobs in order to get the sounds, kind of in between tones and microtonal and wherever I feel like going with it. So it can be just this total off the rails renegade rogue voice. And you combine that with all that craziness of the BIA, and all the sounds that it can do. And that was really what I was looking for. Was I have a lot of stuff that's structured as far as like being able to sequence and write patterns and keep it kind of together and in time and quantized. And this was a way to just have something that wasn't quantized to scale and it was kind of off. And I could put the Oxy on chromatic mode, but I'm still only dealing with semitones. This way I can kind of dial things in between and it gets me this kind of weird rogueness, I guess. So that's why I went for the Doper sequencer. Let's see, when is the SL coming out and pre-sale? We will be premiering the final version of it at Superbooth. Pre-sale should be starting anytime. I'm not sure exactly when. We'll have to talk to the Board Brain guys about that. And it's going to be shipping this summer. So it's finished. So now it just has to be, the pre-sale happens, do the first build, and ship those ones out. So should be cool. Did I mention it has 16 steps? It does have 8 steps. Yeah, the A155 is an 8-step sequencer, not 16-step. Everything else I have is 16 steps, but this one is a maximum of 8. But it's also very easy to shorten, which is really cool. If you just go to the function, you hold down function and you see the 2 dots. That's your starting and ending point of your sequence. So you just do 1 and 5. And now when you hit play, now it's a 5-step sequence. You see that it's just repeating on 5 steps. Or you can hold it down and go 1 and 7, and now it's a 7-step sequence. Or 1 and 8, and now it's an 8-step sequence. And then you can switch on and off steps just by pressing the buttons here, which is great. And then you dial in the pitch with the knobs, just like you do on a DFAM, where they're not quantized to anything. So you can just kind of dial it into what sounds nice. So yeah, interesting, very interesting sequencer, relatively new, and I don't know why there was kind of no fanfare about it, but it's very cool. It's very cool and very useful. Let's see here. Do you run multiple voices into the Versio simultaneously on the send, or do you find that becomes a mess? Yes. So my effects that I have right now is I have 2 send effects, and I will run things into those in differing amounts. Sometimes I'll use it on an individual voice. So for example, if I was doing, let's say I was doing something with, my BIA voice, and I just wanted to have that have reverb, I can obviously just send to that. But there are a lot of times where I'll send multiple things to a reverb. I have this set up so that the effects 1 is pre-fader, meaning that I don't have to bring the fader up in order to be able to send it sound. So what I'll do sometimes, this is how I create atmospheres, in using the bits and kind of recycling the bits that are already here. So I'll take something that I know is, let's say, low frequency, like, let's see, I'll move the pizza down here to low frequency. And I can just send it. Is that there? Yeah, I got a little too low. Okay. So I can just send this some low frequencies just to the reverb without bringing up the fader. And what that does is it gives me the 100% wet of the reverb to start to create an atmosphere without having to use that sound yet. Then if I want to mix that and I want to make it into a more interesting sound and a more full spectrum atmosphere, I can start to bring in bits from other voices. And then let's say I want some high frequencies, I can bring in like a hi-hat. So now I have this atmosphere, I have this background noise that's not any one of the sounds brought in yet. And if I wanted to, just to start off with something atmospheric, maybe I bring in a kick drum just with this. And start something that's kind of moody and cool, but without any of those main voices. And then I can change those by adding differing amounts. And I haven't used any of my voices yet, but anything that I bring in now is going to go with that atmosphere, because it's made, the atmosphere is made from the things that I would bring in. So let's say I wanted to then from here bring in one of my voices. I can bring in a little of the dry signal, and I've already got wet signal there of that one, plus other ones. And maybe I never even bring in the other voices. I'm just using them as part of that background, as part of that atmospheric bit. Or if I want to bring in a different voice. And the other thing that you can do too, whether the voice is in or whether it's pre-fader, you can mess with the voice, right? The voice in. So this is all just pre-fader stuff mixing into reverb, right? And so to answer your question, Ted, yes, it can get messy, but it can also be really interesting. But it's up to you to control it. If you just kind of chuck it all in there all at once, yeah, it can become a mess. But it's a matter of finding out what's that kind of right amount to put in. Now, the same thing goes for kind of using the reverb, the send as a regular reverb as well. So if I bring in my hi-hats and I want a little reverb, I might just add a little reverb to it. Then let's say I bring in my voice. And I don't want that to just be dry. I can add a little reverb. But it's a matter of really dialing in the amount so that you're not getting some crazy overloaded wash of mess. So yes, to answer your question, yes, it can get very messy, but the idea is to try to keep control over it so that it doesn't get messy as you're doing that. Okay. All right. Let's see. Sounds sick the way you did it there. I'm not sure what I did, but yes, maybe it was the pre-fader stuff. But yeah, that's one of the tricks that I use a lot. I'm very excited about the Exelon SL mixer because both of the effect sends can be either pre or post fader, and the switch for them is on the faceplate. So you can, at some point during your show, decide to switch something to pre-fader, use it as that atmospheric background thing, and then switch it back to post-fader to use in a different way. So it's really handy to be able to do that stuff together. But yeah, so that's how I'm using the effects and the pre-fader and post-fader effects in order to kind of make other sounds by combining other things together. Next thing, let's talk a little bit more about some of the other sound design bits here. You just heard a little bit the Bastl pizza, which is, if you've watched any of these streams, you know it's been one of my favorite voices for a while. It's an FM voice, but with a lot of flexibility. So I've got this going through the WMD Javelin and the carbon filter. But the thing that I love about the pizza, first things first, octave switch, just like I said before. So I can go. So I could have a lot of different characters at the quick turn of a switch, and it's jumping an octave without kind of having to blend it out of key. Although it's not really tuned, but want to make sure that it kind of jumps in a way that we understand and that we expect, rather than having it do things that are unexpected. It's an FM voice, but it's also a complex FM voice. So being able to change up, depending on how you have the configuration set, being able to change up different settings just with the sliders and the knobs, it gives you a lot of flexibility in a relatively small space, right? So let's just change up the FM index of this so you can hear from one side to the other. Right now it's in the middle, so we'll go to the left, back to the middle, and back to the right. Back to the middle. Then the shape down on the bottom, right now it's set to waves, so it's the waveform of the modulator. So this doesn't change things up a ton, but if we switch this over to fold, what it does is it wave folds in different ways. And then if we change this to ring, it ring modulates. Again, the wave shape doesn't work as well unless you move this out to something that has a little bit more character. And then you can hear what the wave shapes do. And again, you can set this up to do different things. One challenge with the pizza, just to put it out there, is that as you can hear, little movements change it a lot. So it can very quickly go like totally off the rails. And so it's really important before you use this live that you spend a lot of time getting to know and kind of memorize the positions on the panel. There's not a lot of positions, but memorize the positions on the panel that you like so that you can get to those sounds that you're interested in really quickly if you move it off bass. One thing, I feel comfortable enough with it now that one of the things that I do with this a lot is I'll experiment live while I'm playing. So if I've got like something going, back with my kick drum again. So I'll move things live and do some interesting change ups. Anytime you get back to the middle, you get that kind of clean FM sound. And again, octave switch, we can very easily turn this into something higher frequency. And having good control over things like decay settings of your envelopes allows you to really do interesting stuff when you're performing. So like building tension, releasing tension. If you want to do something like combine a filter sweep with opening up your right, so you can see you get a lot of variety out of one relatively small voice. I mean, it's only 8 HP plus the envelope and the filter. It does have a built-in envelope, which I used for a very, very long time. I just love the way that Javelin and the Carbon work together. and kind of can be patched together to create kind of a whole voice with whatever oscillator you're using with it. So that's why I put them together, but it does have its own internal envelope. So if you need to save some space, you can just set it up in that mode so that the control knob here at the bottom becomes your envelope control. Very much like the envelope control on the BIA, where you've got like one side and the other. You've got slower attack, faster attack, and it opens up the decay at the same time that it changes the attack. So it's kind of a combo version of an envelope, but it is handy if you need to save some space, and I used it like that for a very long time. Yes, so that's the pizza. I use the pizza a lot for basses, for melodic things, all kinds of tonal things. Yeah, it's just kind of a bread and butter voice for me. My other tonal kind of melodic voice is the Ballista Blast, which is the newest addition to everything. This thing is kind of crazy because it's a whole bunch of different voices in one. And so at any given time during a performance, it can be any number of things, right? So if I want this to be, for example, right now we've got an FM voice. Some modulation going on here. I can change the algorithm. Built-in envelopes, built-in filter. So lots of different variety. You have your built-in envelopes here that it always works. The envelope always works on the amplitude, but then you can also assign it to any one of these four knobs. So in the FM voice, these are different characteristics of the FM engine. So harmonic, emphasis, a parameter that can change. It has an alternate, and then the pitch. So the envelope can be a regular envelope, it can be a looping envelope, it can be an LFO, and it can be assigned to all of those in differing amounts at the same time, which is kind of cool. Same envelope, but different amounts of attenuation per sound. So you can get these movements that work together, but that aren't all the same and all the same amount, which is pretty cool. So yeah, so that's the FM voice. Then if we switch engines, we can switch to Classic, which Classic is a subtractive voice. That has a bunch of different modes. So this is a sync mode. So you can hear we've got synced oscillators. This is a width mode. You change the width, kind of like pulse width modulation. Then you've got a noise mode where this blends with a noise oscillator. Then you have a chord mode, which is pretty cool. You can, you have different chords to dial in, so it's all minor. At this side, take off that modulation. So this is all the modulation that's coming from the this expander. I'm going to turn that off for the moment. So now the first expander's off, so we can just stick to this for the moment. This is your chord mode. This blends in a sub-oscillator. This is a dual oscillator that you can detune. And then this is unison, and this dials in the spread of the unison. And then back to sync mode. And the sync has a square or a sawtooth wave. So that's just one of the engines. That's the classic engine. Then you have a full wavetable engine with a whole bunch of wavetables that are built in. I won't dig through this one just because you guys know what wavetables sound like, and it all kind of depends on the wavetable. But you do have control over this with filter as well. Modulation of the wavetables using the oscillators, using the envelopes or the LFOs that are built in. And you can use the factory wavetables, or you can put your own in with the SD card, which is great. Then you have the FM engine, which you heard at the beginning. So again, tons of flexibility in one voice. So you'll see like the common theme here of all of this is that every one of the voices that I have has to have a really broad palette of things that it can do, and things that I can dial in really quickly and get to those sounds really fast without having to save any presets, right? So in order to be able to play really long sets with a limited amount of sounds available to me, I need those sounds to all be really flexible so that I can mix and match them in different ways. So that was basically all of the voices on the top row here. Then in the bottom row, some interesting voices as well. So we've got the Bohm kick drum, which you have heard. Sounds amazing. You can really kind of dial in the shape of the sound. Right, very quickly. Again, a lot of diversity of sound as far as kick drums go. And then it also has this groove module, which is adds in that kind of reverb rumble. Then you've got a multi-tap on here as well. So you can add in different taps to get a rumble off of that as well. You can change the length, you can change the pitch. There's white noise, there's a sub. Right, so a lot of different things that you can do, again, with one kick drum. So instead of having to have a whole bunch of kick drums or like folders of kick samples, this way you can have one kick that you can actually morph and change and modify into a bunch of different things. All of that was just one of the algorithms, and there's 9 different algorithms in it that can all be kind of dialed in the way you like them, and then you can save snapshots of particular settings that you like if you want to do that, or you can kind of modify those. Next up, we have the battering ram, which is another kick drum. And what I use that one for is a secondary kick drum. So I don't know if there's an easy way to show this. Let's see here. Interesting. Oh, that's why. So basically, I have my Bohm as my primary kick drum. So that's my kind of, 4 on the floor. It's going to be my main kick that I use to kind of set time, to kind of cut through the mix, to really define everything. But then I have the Bohm set up as a secondary kick that I can use to add in different elements that are kind of add groove to the low end. And this allows me to change the character of those groove hits separately from the primary kick, so I can have different characters. So I can make this one maybe more muted, longer, shorter, more transient, less transient, without having to change up the original kick. So what I do with this one is I put them both into 2 different mono channels, and then I can use the balance, the pan function between those 2 to blend the 2 together. So all the way to the left is the secondary kick, all the way to the right is the primary kick. And then if I just, here, let me switch to overhead so you can see what I'm doing here. So all the way to the left is the primary kick. And then if I start to blend those 2 together, in the center is both. And then as you get to the right, it's only the secondary kick. So I can blend those 2 together to use them in differing amounts, and I can sequence them separately, and I can sound design them separately to dial in exactly the sound character that I want for each one of those. So that's why 2 kicks in there. Then we have the Archer's Rig for hi-hats. You already heard it a little bit before. One thing I love about the Archer's Rig is just how quick it is to dial into different sounds. So like you want to go from a closed hat to an open hat. It's very easy to just change out your filter. You've got effects, you have tuning, and then you have, again, a bunch of different engines in here. This can do different things. So this is your 909 engine, but you've got all different types. This is more 808 sounding. This is noise based. Then you have one that's a sine wave. So you can actually sequence this if you want to with pitch. And so you could sequence this to be a melodic voice, kind of like what we were doing with the BIA. This one's kind of a bell sound, that kind of FM sounding bell tone. But I tend to like this 909 sound, so I stick to this one a lot. But again, having something that has a huge variety of sound and the ability to dial it in really quick and switch from one group of sounds to another group of sounds, so you don't have to have a gigantic case or a whole bunch of hardware boxes or tons of samples or whatever. You can use a relatively limited, I know it's still a big case, but a relatively limited number of voices, but they can cover you for hours and hours of playing live if you sound design them correctly. Okay. All right, let's jump into the questions here. What do we have? Do you tend to change the oscillator ratio button during sets? I think I can't remember which one we're talking about. Maybe the pizza, but yes, everything that you've heard me do, I'm doing during sets. If it's something that's a bit dramatic and it's going to be distracting, I'll do it when the fader's down, and I'll do it just by kind of knowing my voices and knowing where those settings should be to get me a starting point for something else. But oftentimes, even with the faders up, I'll make subtle, slow changes so the sounds will morph over time rather than dramatically jumping from one sound to another. So yes, I am changing up all of the stuff you've heard, is all being changed up during the show. Right, let's see here. Why is Ballista better than Platts? Well, let's see. Platts has a bunch of different individual engines. The wavetable in Ballista is great. The FM in Ballista, I think, is much more full featured than in Platts. I love the immediacy of how all of the knobs are for dialing in and changing sound, how much control you have over them. The amount of internal modulation within this, even without the expander, is pretty crazy. So basically this is the envelope over on this side. So you've got the depth here and the decay, and then there's the attack here in this little knob. What this button does is it assigns this to different things. So it's always assigned to the amplitude, right? But if I switch through and I switch this to, let's say I put it on harmonics, I can decide how much depth I want going to this effect. Then I can go to the next one and I can say, okay, I want more going to that one. Then I can go to the next one and say that I want a different amount going to that one. That's a totally different amount of the same envelope or LFO or however you have it set, but you can send differing amounts with the attenuator going to different things so that they go in time. The modulations modulate in time while they're changing things, but they're in differing amounts. So there's really a lot of movement, and that's just the internal envelope / LFO. Then when you add the expander, you get another one that does all of those exact same things plus an assignable destination. And then you can also add in a second expander. So each one can have up to 2 expanders. So then you've got, you would have 12 LFO / envelope destinations that you can dial in differing amounts to different ones of them. So there's a lot of control as far as the modulation goes. I love the being able to have an octave switch on this as well. So if you lock the pitch, it becomes an octave switch, just like on the other ones. So that's something else that I don't think Platts has octave switch. It just has a tune knob. And so, yeah, it's kind of like some of the voices of Platts, but the voices that it has are much deeper. But the voices sound very different from the Platts voices as well. So, yeah, I mean, I'm very used to using Platts because I've been using the Oxy Coral for years, and that's basically 8 instances of Platts in one module, where this is the things are deeper. You know, you can't take a Platts voice, use the subtractive voice of it, and switch it up between having an added sub oscillator to having a chord engine to having unison mode with spreadable unison, with a detune mode, with a sync mode. All that's just within that one voice. So it's like similar in that it has multiple engines, but the engines are much deeper. I guess if that's for me the way to explain it, if that makes sense. What else? How do you set up pizza for live performances? Because it can go crazy. I don't. That's kind of what we were talking about. It's like for me, I'm constantly changing it for different uses to use it at different times in the performance. And so there's going to be some times when, let's say I've got it, I'm going to switch this off really quick because for some reason it's not showing up the way I want it to. Let's see if this gives me There we go. Now I've got my things visualizing the way I want them to. Yeah, so let's take the pizza for a second. So I might use it like this at some point during a performance. This might be the sound that I'm using it with. And then maybe I switch up to a different voice. And then I'm using a different voice. And then while I have that changed up, let's say maybe I switch this to a different type of sound here. And then I bring my pizza back in. Got something different. So, I mean, that's kind of a quick, messy way to do it, but during the performances, I'm constantly changing it up. So there's nothing in the case that I set up and say, okay, that's the way it's gonna be for the entire performance. Everything is constantly being modified and adapted and updated and evolved and changed throughout the performance in order to allow me to have that broad amount of palette and that broad amount of time to be able to play just from a relatively limited number of voices. So I don't set it, but yes, I totally agree with you that it can go way off the rails really fast. And so the pizza is one of those voices where I recommend before you use it in live performance, particularly if you're going to use it the way I'm using it, where you're changing it up, spend a lot of time with it. Spend a lot of time with it, messing around, changing things up, figuring out what certain positions sound like within the settings, so that when you get into a live performance, you have a much better feel for what you're going to do. So you're not just kind of like blindly, randomly moving stuff around and shifting it around. You can actually kind of focus in and get those sounds that you really want to get out of it. But yeah, Pizza's an amazing voice, a diverse voice, a flexible voice, but it's also a difficult voice. It's a difficult voice to control. But when you get it under control, it's amazing. It sounds amazing in every mix. Let's see. Cheers from Lost Cabin Brewery. Hey, what's going on? Glad to hear that you're enjoying a cold one. The fan is fine. Good. Glad. Good evening, Honey Smack, all the way from beautiful Melbourne, Australia. Good to have you on here. The legendary live performer, Honey Smack himself. He's going to be doing a class coming up, by the way. If you are interested in doing his class, I would highly recommend it. This guy has forgotten more about live performance than most of us will ever know. So check out his social media, and there's links to a course that he's going to be doing coming up next month online, but it's going to be live online. So definitely check that out, because he's the man and he will tell you exactly what you need to know about live performance. Let's see where we at. Yes, the pizza, I mean, the button that toggles ratios, semitones, intervals. No, I don't pick anything based on the Oxy scale, because I'm changing that up as well. So the intervals I will change up, but I generally keep them similar because I have certain ways that I like it. But just like with anything else with the pizza, get used to what each one does, so that when it comes time to perform with it, you're getting the sounds out of it that you want to get out of it, right? Instead of just like having it go off the rails. But it's one that's worth hours and hours and hours and hours of digging into, because there's a lot you can get out of it, but it can also take you for a ride if you haven't taken the time to get to know it. Okay. Let's see. Glad to see you streaming. I'm glad to be streaming. I had to sell all my Electron boxes after Family Crisis. I'm considering the Tonewerk as my master sequencer sampler in a new system. How do you like it? Sorry you had to sell your stuff, but I'm glad it sounds like you're going to be getting stuff back. I guess my answer to that will be, if you look at my table here, the only Electron box that you see in my live setup is the Tonewerk. And I could put whichever one I want in the setup. And for me, the Tonewerk is the one that has the best sound, the broadest diversity of sound, particularly with the ability to do the routings, different effects, multiple effects per channel, inserts, including inserts on buses, plus your sends, plus all that stuff. So just the ability, it's kind of like having a whole modular in one box with 8 voices or 8 channels, because you can route and send and change and modify and swap out almost as much as you can in a modular. So it's very, very cool. Highly, highly recommend it. Greetings from Copenhagen. Herbie, what are you doing all the way over there? All the way over in Copenhagen. Honestly, going to be good to see you in a couple weeks in Berlin. Looking forward to that. Thank you, Mr. Haberfield, for joining us on the stream. How well does the Tonewerk sequence drums? I've heard the Digitact does better for drum sequencing. I mean, the sequencer itself is virtually the same between the two. The Digitact is a machine that's really made for one-shots. That's kind of where it came from. They've expanded it out a bit in kind of, you know, in my opinion, some kind of awkward ways that get away from its core strength, which is one-shot sampling. So if you want a purely drum machine, the Digitact is great, and that's really what it was made for. And it does a few other things as well. The Tonewerk is a lot more of a sound design tool, a lot more of a sampling tool, multi-sampling, polyphonic, all of that stuff. Lots of effects, lots of assignable effects that the other voice or the other boxes don't have. But it can also sequence one shots if that's what you want to do. It has a single shot. What's it called? I forget what the voice is called all the time. Single player mode, which is, you know, basically just a one-shot mode. So you could do that. The Digitact 2 has 16 tracks. Tonewerk has 8, but each of the 8, each one can have different engines, and each one of them could have what's called the sub-track engine, which makes these gray buttons here an 8-track one-shot drum machine. So it's kind of like having a Digitact 1, and you can put one of those on every track if you wanted. So you could have a 64-track Digitact 1 if you wanted to. So you can mix and match those, and that's one of the reasons why for me the Tonewerk is so flexible and why it's in my setup, because I can use it for a lot of different things. So yeah, it's a very diverse machine. So a couple things we didn't talk about yet in the live setup here, as far as the sound design bits goes. One thing that I always get asked about is modulation. And again, because I don't know what I'm going to be playing beforehand, I can't preset modulation because I don't know the timing. I don't know what I want it to be doing at any given moment, and I'm constantly changing up my voices and sounds. So any modulation that I'm doing during the show, I'm kind of live patching. So I have certain things set up. For example, I had something coming out of the Griffin's Claws, which the reason why I have the Griffin's Claws here is because I can hold one button down, record a modulation, whether it's, you know, an LFO or a movement or whatever, and then I can just patch that into something, and I can do it quickly on the fly. So if we go back to our BIA was, let's see. So we've got our BIA here, and let's say I'm playing with the BIA, and I want to play with the decay. Well, I can just take my Griffin's Claws and patch it into decay, and then I can start moving the fader here to doing the same thing that I was doing with the knob here. But if I find something I like, I can just hold record, and then I let it go, and it does what I was just doing. So then it will keep going and keep playing that. So then I have modulation in there, which I didn't have at the beginning, but I couldn't have preset that because I don't know what I'm going to be doing with the BIA at that moment. So this gives me a way to come up with an idea in the moment and put that into the performance. And so the Griffin's Claws is key for this. So I have 4 tracks with 4 different faders that I can just hold the record button, record that, and then send it out. And with the new module that I mentioned at the beginning here, the 1U module that I'm getting, it has 4 different inputs that are then multed to 4 different outputs each, and each one of those has an attenuverter on them. So I'm going to take the 4 outputs from the Griffin's Claws, patch them straight into that, so that at any time during the performance, I can record something in the Griffin's Claws, send it out to 4 different destinations, attenuated or attenuverted in 4 different ways, coming out of one thing. So really the only source of modulation that I'll be using, other than the Ballista, what it has internally, is these 4 tracks of the Griffin's Claws, but with all the different options that I'll be able to have with that the 1U module to be able to split those out. And if I really needed something else as far as modulation goes, I also have the PAMS Pro Workout down here, which is for me just acting as different clocks going to different destinations. So like the Doper sequencer is clocked, the Clutch is clocked, the Ghost is clocked, the Bone Groove is clocked, and I can also clock the effects in the Oxymeta if I want to, but I don't have them clocked right now. But so all those different clocks at different amounts are coming out of the PAMs so that I can send those out to different things. So clock is coming from the Oxy 1 via the HDMI into the pipe, and then the clock and reset from the pipe are going into the clock and reset in the PAMs, and then all those clocks are being spread out throughout the rig in order to be able to clock all the different stuff. So, but I still do have 3 channels left in the PAMs that are open, and I could use those for modulation if I wanted to, if I really needed something. But I always have more than enough with the Archer's rig, because as you heard, being able to have something like that, which is my that decay, but then if I wanted to add something else in, I could patch into a second channel here, a little harder with these cables, and then I could go into, let's say, the spread of the and then if I want, I can record that. And then when I'm done using those, if I don't want to use that, modulation anymore, or that modulation anymore, I just take those out and then I just hit erase, and those are both erased, and now they're ready to be reused again. So as I'm coming up with ideas for modulation during a performance, I'm constantly reusing those same 4 sources, because I don't ever want to get to the point where I've got so much modulation going that it's really like making everything sound too chaotic. I want to be able to do things that are purposeful in the performance. So if I get an idea, I can just do it with that. And again, being able to mult those out to a bunch of different destinations gives me, 16 different destinations from 4 sources. So it's plenty. It's more than enough, right? Than what I would need for a show. Okay. Let's see here. Currently loving a Model 1 mixer in the studio, but debating an Exelon for modular travel ease. Efficient setup. SL modular Exelon seemed great, but guessing I'd miss the Model 1 filters and full-size faders. Give it a try, because even though the faders are smaller, they're not a lot smaller. They're very playable, and this is somebody who comes from a DJ background, from decades of using DJ mixers. The faders feel great. The filters, I mean, sure, the filters are good in the Model 1, yes, but the Exelon SL has a stereo high pass, low pass, analog DJ style filter, so you don't have to switch on and off high pass, low pass, assigning them like you do in the Model 1 and the Allen and Heaths. So this one, it's all kind of in one spot. You have separate resonance control for the high pass and the low pass side, and they're true stereo, true analog mixer and filter, and that filter is assignable by channel within the Exelon SL, so you can have any one or combination of channels be on the filter, or there's an override switch so that it automatically turns to be a master filter just by flipping one switch, and that puts it onto your master mix and turns it into a master performance filter if you want to do like a master high pass something for a to create a moment. So you have great filters built into it. You have 8 channels instead of, well, 6, but really 4 full featured channels. This one has 8 full featured stereo channels, 2 stereo effects send and returns, and 2 stereo insert send and returns that are assignable by track as well. Master sidechain compressor that is assignable by track, an individual compressor per channel, which I don't believe the Model 1 has. I know the V10 has it, but I don't believe the Model 1 does. Tilt EQ per channel. What else? Analog drive circuit per channel. TRS stereo out per channel if you want to multi-track your performances or your studio work or whatever. Assignable buses for outputs. So a lot of stuff built into one mixer, and it's very, very playable. I played a show on it in LA a few weeks ago, and it was great. Very, very, very comfortable. So yeah. Let's see. How well does the tone work? Okay, we already went over that. So basically, one track set to the subtrack machine, and I can sequence each drums on its own subtrack, correct? Yes, you could. One thing to keep in mind though is that on the subtracks, so if you have a subtrack on track 1, these all share send effects and insert effects. So sometimes with your drums, you might want to add reverb to maybe your cymbals and maybe rim shots, but not to your kick drum. You can't separate those out this way. So what I do whenever I want to use drums in the Tonewerk is I'll use one track as my low end kind of kick rumbles, and then the other one as another sub track with all of my percussion and high end. And that way I can group them and process them together. And then I use the other tracks for my tonal melodic stuff. And subtracks don't have to just be drums. They can be one shots of anything. So they could be, a synth shot or, a stab or a vocal shot or whatever you want them to. So yeah, they're very, very flexible. It's a very, very flexible machine. So anyway, let's see. How do you set the root note of your sample for melodic parts? There's a couple ways that I've done that in the past. So kind of the easiest way is to set everything, do all of your samples to a known quantity like C. And if you have your samples always set to C, it's very easy to pitch them up and down to match whatever you're doing in your setup. The other thing is you can take kind of common keys that you play in and then use samples that are in those keys. So for example, I like to play in Phrygian E, which means basically any one of the white keys fits into Phrygian E. So that means any sample that is recorded in A, B, C, D, E, F, G, but not flats or sharps. So they will all work within that, and then I can pitch them around as well. But for the most part, I will, if it's going to be something that I'm going to play melodically, whether it's on a keyboard or sequencing something that's going to be melodic, I generally will sample those at C so that I know where they are, and then I can pitch them around within the sequencer, whatever I'm doing, or within the machine, the sampler that I'm using them on. But the key really isn't necessarily whether it's C or F or E or whatever. The key is to make sure that you know where they are. so that you've got something you can kind of work from a known amount. Because if you're in the middle of a show and you're trying to pitch something and you don't know what key it started on, it becomes really complicated. And you can put the key in the name as you're naming your samples. But again, if you're not used to pitching around samples from odd keys or odd notes, it's going to take your focus away from the show to try to do that live. So I would suggest having a known quantity, whatever that is, whether it's C or E or whatever you want your known amount to be, and then you can pitch around from there, if that makes sense. Okay. All right. What other questions do you guys have? Pop those into the chat, and I am happy to answer any questions about sound design, the rig. Obviously, we're talking about a bunch of different things today, so any of those things, but really the focus being on sound design today, and kind of how to do that for techno, which is what we were talking about earlier. Having some diversity of sound and some flexibility is really key. Now, how do I build up a track using that sound? Well, one of the things that you saw earlier was the idea of having pre-fader sounds. So being able to bring things in that give you atmospheric bits that can give you atmospheric stuff, and then you can add in your kick drum to that if you want, as just kind of a foundational element. But then I like to bring in different elements in kind of simple patterns rather than trying to overcomplicate things melodically, because then it ends up shifting away from kind of the genre that I'm looking for. So I will bring in things that are relatively simple, right? So you have something that's all on one note here, but you can maybe pitch around, or let's say do an octave jump with one of those. And then we start to change around our sound design. Again, kick drum in one sound, but with some interesting effects and some interesting sound design, and it already starts to get you into a mood, into a vibe with that kind of atmospheric background stuff. brought out that initial sound that was coming from the pizza and brought in this other new sound, which is coming right now from the BIA. Let's say we wanted to change something out there. Shifting the exact same sounds around can create completely different moments, motifs, vibe, energy for different parts of a performance. So rather than trying to say, this is my bass, this is my lead, this is my whatever, saying, okay, well, I can make this right now, right? So this part right now that's my kind of lead, if I wanted to, I can change this up and make this a bass. Right? So that's my same voice. I didn't change the sequence at all. Let's say I wanted to change that up and I wanted that to be, you know, I wanted something else to be my bass. Like, let's go back over to the pizza here. Let's make that into something that's more bass-like. This can be my bass, and let's switch up my octave on the BIA. Shorten up the decay. Add in some interesting sound design, and then let's bring that back in. BIA being the bass note and the pizza being more of a lead note to now the pizza is the bass note and the BIA is more of the lead note. And you can do the same switching around through all of the instruments. Maybe I want to go over to the clutch and have that be my kind of a lead percussion thing. Maybe send it through some effects. Change up the character of our bass. Make it more aggressive. Bring it high. 16th hat. Go back to our bass part. If you look, our bass part's looping on 8 steps. Something that I like to do is in the second 8 steps, maybe write something else that's, weirder. And then what I can do, then I can, during a breakdown, I can just change my end point of that sequence and it adds in the second part that I just wrote. So as you can see, the idea is to bounce around between sounds and not necessarily have one thing always be the same thing. It's kind of the key to being able to mix and match, or being able to mix and match is kind of the key to being able to do much longer sets. Because if you have a rigid setup, the kind of idea of like your gear is a band and this is your bass player and this is your lead and this is your this and this is your this and this is your this, that doesn't work in this kind of improvised long form type of set, because the only way you would be able to do that and have it not be boring is you would need 5 basses and 18 leads and 6 kick drums and all of this stuff in order to be able to make it into a whole long set that sounded interesting. With this though, being able to have the flexibility for the BIA to be a lead or a bass line or a hi-hat or a snare or a kick drum or a pad or a whatever, I can have it be whatever I want it to be, and so can all of the other voices. So if I'm playing with one and I get an idea and I say, oh, I'd like to bring in this other thing, I can't afford to be able to say, oh, well, I can't do that because because I'm already using that voice for something else. So instead what I do is I say, okay, well, great. I'm just going to make a new thing with a new voice, and being able to have octave switches sound shaping control over each individual voice gives me a lot of flexibility to be able to do a lot of this stuff in a show, right? And so kind of going back to these again, right? So you hear that background atmosphere bit, and we've got our kick drum here. Let's try another voice. Let's try our Ballista. Oh, it's because I put all this modulation in here. I made it all sound super weird. There we go. It's a more interesting algorithm here. Thing with having something like the Ballista is that as you need something, it can be a lot of really diverse things, right? So right now it's FM, but let's change this over to a classic voice. And let's do it with, let's say, the sub oscillator. Coming up with ways that you can mix and match and blend things together while you're changing up what each voice can do. So that's kind of the idea behind the sound design part of this, to be able to do whole shows and very long shows with a very limited case. You notice we haven't really touched the tone work this time. We did a bunch on the last stream because this time I wanted to show how we're really using the modular and kind of the limitations of what's here in order to still be able to do a lot of variety of sound, as long as you're kind of selecting the right modules, learning them in such a way that you can really kind of push the limits of what their sounds can do. And then, and then getting creative with it. That's the whole thing. So Let's see. Any other questions? If you've got other questions, please chuck those in the chat. I am happy to answer whatever you've got. Greetings from Amsterdam. Hey, what's going on, Lorenzo? Good to see ya. So, yeah, lots of options. Change my chair around here. It's a very small space that I'm in here, so I'm like kind of scooting stuff around. But yeah, this is basically the setup that I'm going to be using for, again, my shows in Europe, shows in the US that I have coming up. Just this case up here, the lower part down here is going to be replaced by the Exelon SL mixer. And then I'll have the Tonewerk and the drop and the Oxy 1. And then for the bigger shows, I'll also have the TR-1000 just because it's so fun to play and it sounds so amazing. So yeah, so that will be the setup for the shows. So this rig right here, again, as I mentioned, is all the modular that I'll be using to play some super epic long shows. So I have a 6-hour long solo show coming up. I have a 5-hour long collaborative group event that I'll be playing, and it's just going to be this Tonewerk and TR-1000, and then obviously mixer and control surfaces. But that's pretty much it. So it's not going to be some gigantic tower of modular hauling around, shipping it from place to place in order to be able to get the sounds. I'm trying to get all the sounds I need and all the flexibility that I need out of this size case. So what else? Let's see. Sorry if this was already asked. Any idea when the Exelon will be available? Yes, it will be shipping this summer. We're going to have the final version of it at Super Booth, and I'll be there with them showing off that final version. And then we will, I'm assuming that pre-sales should be open any day now, coming up at some point, like around Super Booth. And then, then it'll just be a matter of how quickly they get built. But it's finished, it's ready to go. Now it's just a matter of doing the build phase and the pre-sale phase. So yeah, they'll be shipping this summer. And if you'd like to help out the channel, join in the Patreon, patreon.com/Circo, right down here below. And you could also sign up for one of my courses. I do an improvised live performance course and a hybrid production course. I'm going to open up signups very shortly now for the May session of both of those courses. So if you're interested in those, definitely get signed up as soon as we get those opened up before those places go away. And yeah, obviously there's affiliate links down below. Now that I'm a bit more mobile and nomadic, hence the name of the stream, any help from any of these sources is greatly appreciated, because this is what supports this channel, supports me being able to go make this music and play this music out. So yeah, I do appreciate any and all who want to join in. What else? Any other questions or comments or yeah, anything else as far as the live setup, how I'm going to play, traveling with it? The great thing with getting down to one modular case is that now everything fits into a normal sized rolling carry-on, which I have right here. Actually, I can't lift it up because it's got a bunch of other gear in it. But yeah, it's going to all go into one rolling carry-on, and yeah, just makes for easier travel. The only thing that doesn't go on the carry-on is the TR-1000. That's going to be carried as a separate carry-on. But yeah, other than that, this is toured with and traveled with and trains and automobiles. So any other questions on anything? If not, I think we might call it a day here. Thank you guys very much. I appreciate everybody for tuning in, spending the time. Join in the Patreon, join in one of the courses, use the affiliate links, help support the channel, and I will do my best to keep these going on a regular basis. The next one of these, I will no longer be in Mexico. I will be, I think, next weekend. This will be from in the US, the next 2 weekends, and then after that, they will be from all over Europe. So hopefully I'll see some of you at Superbooth. If you're interested and you're going to be going to Superbooth and you're interested in getting into our live performance, the Prediction Cycle event, which is the collaborative event with me, Joseph Anders, Varia Aves, Maidan, Travarsi. We're all going to be playing together. If you're interested in coming to that and getting in early when we do our setup and sound check so you can kind of see how that works, join in the Patreon. Because the top levels of the Patreon, I'm going to have limited spaces available for those people in that level. They'll be eligible for early entrance to the event. You'll still need to get your ticket, but you can get in early so that you can see how the behind the scenes bit works, the setup and sound check and all of that stuff. So if you'd like to do that, join in the Patreon. We'll see you over there. Hopefully we'll see you in one of the courses. Keep an eye because those will be the registration for those will be open soon. And yeah, thanks very much. Hope you got something out of this. I had a lot of fun. Hope you guys did too. And if you have any other questions, put them in the comments of the video. Happy to answer those. I try to read all those and respond to those. So yeah, hope to see you all in Superbooth or at one of the events. And otherwise, thanks very much for tuning in, and I will talk to you soon. Take care.